You catch the right person at the right time, you don't have to sell. You don't have to sell. So many people think that selling is about pitching. It's not about pitching. Selling is about providing a solution to what that person needs and wants. What is it about your sales, your product, what you're selling, whether you're selling your skills, whether you're selling a product, that means that person needs that product? If you're selling outcome, you're in the smallest minority of great salespeople. 35 years of sales crammed into one video. That's what we are here for. Honestly, that's why I'm here, because I've said this a million times. Sales is everything for business. I love it. I love sales. But I also know that for so many people, it's super confusing. I get asked all day long, how do I do sales? What is sales? What do I need to learn? I also get told I'm not a salesperson. I don't get told that. Other people say it about themselves. So this video is going to be a story about my journey, what I've learned from 35 years in sales, how I started, how I used to be absolutely terrible at sales, the embarrassment from the first sales call I ever made, to learning how to sell horse manure, how to sell life insurance, how to sell advertising, how to sell stocks, which are probably they're actually not the hardest, but they're the highest value thing to sell, selling billion-dollar deals, how to raise money. All of it comes down to the same idea. If you want to know how to sell, you have to listen to people selling, you have to learn, and then you have to practice. Listen, learn, and practice. So this video is about my story, what I've learned from it, what you can take away. And I'm going to throw in the lessons, I'm telling you, but I'm telling myself, because I love to have this framework that I can go back and think of myself. Before each week, I will sit and have a think about, okay, how am I going to get better at sales this week? So I am 57. This story starts in 1989 when I was 22. I just was leaving university. And I saw an advert in the paper in London. So this story will take us from my first sales job in London to today. But that very first job that I saw, it said broker wanted. And it had a message on it. It said OTE £18,000. And I remember thinking, let's go. £18,000 to be a broker, which I understood as a stockbroker, and £18,000 a year. I didn't know what OTE meant at the time. I went out, brought myself a suit, went to the interview, and at the interview, I thought I crushed it. And I got the job. And I was like, I am going to be a stockbroker. I'm going to sell a lot. I'm an absolute legend. Let's go. He said, turn up on Monday at this address. So I turned up on Monday. And I thought I was going to be the only person there. It turns out there was 50 other people. The job I had got was a insurance broker selling life insurance. They had hired anybody who had responded to the advert. OTE means on-target earnings. The actual base salary was 0. So now I'm negative. I'd spent £100 on my suit from Marks & Spencer's. I'm now in a room full of 50 people when I thought it would be just me. My actual salary is 0. And this guy stood up in front of us and said, and literally, this was my introduction to sales. He said, everybody stand up. So we all stood up. This is in central London. And he said, and he picked on one person and said, how did you get to work? And the person said, on the bus. And he made us walk to the window where he had parked his Porsche outside and said, I came in a Porsche because I learned how to sell. Do you still want to get the bus every day? And I'm not advocating this is the way to teach sales, but what I'm advocating is that he made this incredibly, probably quite crass, but harsh statement is, you're going to stay on the bus unless you learn sales. So I sat in the room, and this guy, if you've seen a film called Glengarry Glen Ross, which teaches you so much about sales, he said, I understand that almost all of you know nothing. We are going to take you from the absolute start, cold calling, scripts, follow up. Because remember, if you don't want to be here, you should leave because we're paying you zero. The £18,000 is if you become a really good salesperson and you start closing deals. And that's where I started to learn in an environment. And I would say by day 2, there was maybe 30 people there. By the end of the week, there was 8 of us. So only 8 people made it the first week, because for a lot of people, the harsh realities in 1989 was phone book, 50 calls a day. And this is the structure he put around. He gave us a few key tools. And in essence, these are the same tools you need today. He gave us a phone, a list of numbers from the phone book. He gave us a product to sell, and he gave us a script to read. We would make the calls, 50 every morning. And the product was life insurance. The company was Allied Dunbar. And the phone call was, "Hi, I'm Ned from Allied Dunbar. Do you have a moment?" And they would say, "Yes, what's it for?" And we would say, "Do you love your family?" And the hook was, if you loved your family, you would have life insurance in case something happened to you. Because if you passed away and there was no life insurance, your family's in trouble. And we learned, what they told us was, we're not selling product, we're selling an outcome. Now, Allied Dunbar was not known as the best place to work. It was known as what's called a chop shop, which was we sold product no matter what. We really didn't listen. We really didn't get deep on the customer. But I stayed there for almost a year. I made 50 calls every morning. And we were meant to make 5 meetings for the afternoon where we would go out and meet. And then in the evening, I door knocked. We went out and knocked on doors. And I'm getting probably 99 out of 100, not even a start of a conversation. And the one start of a conversation, maybe only 1 out of 10 of those would result in meetings in a deal. So if you're doing your maths, that's 1 in 1,000. So this is the start of my story, is that after a year of closing 1 in 1,000 deals, everything feels a little easier after that. That is lesson 1 in sales. You have to go through that level of rejection. And I'm going to teach you how to make it fine, because I had to learn. Because the next stage was me moving up a little bit. Now, I moved up to sell horse manure. Doesn't sound like a big jump, but I'll explain why in a minute. But as you go through sales, so if you're thinking about sales, one of the hardest things, and this is the thing that I learned at the beginning of my journey, was that when somebody tells you no, they're not saying to you, "Ned, I don't like you." It's not a personal thing. Sure, the 1 in a million guy might personally give you crap. Don't worry about that. Let that go. Almost always the situation, it just wasn't the right timing, or it wasn't the right product. And this is the greatest skill you can learn. Let it go. Too many salespeople are focusing on the negatives. If you can take one thing from this video, it's that the immediacy, the absolute immediacy of letting that no go is so important. It'll set you free. It'll make you an amazing salesperson. When somebody says no, say, now, obviously, if they say no and it's, "Oh, I don't quite have the budget," you can debate on that, or it's not quite the right time. But if the product is literally, if the person says, "I have life insurance, I'm all covered, I have everything I need, but I thank you," no problem. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good luck to you." You know why? Because the 10, 15, 20 minutes trying to convert that person who already has the product is only going to take negative energy from you, because they're almost certainly going to say no. You're not helping your brand in the market with that person. And that 20 minutes, you could have made 10 more calls and found the next right one. Sales is about understanding the flow, the repetition, and getting away from the sales that are never going to happen. I probably wasted 10 years of my career not understanding how to get away from deals. If you can get away from the wrong deals, you want no's and you want yeses. What you don't want is maybes. You don't want to be caught in this middle land of maybes. Maybe that, or maybe, or I'm not sure. If the guy says no, that's fine. Just take the no and move on. If they're getting towards a yes, that's great. Get them there, and we'll talk about how to get them there. So sales isn't what so many people think it is, which is this idea that, oh, I'm going to convert this guy and I'm going to win them over and we'll sell them and I'm such a great pitcher and nobody can get away from me. You need to be in front of the right person at the right time. And how do you do that? You increase the surface area of luck. I'm partly a good salesperson, but I'm partly a lucky salesperson. Why? Because I've done 25,000 sales meetings. So my surface area of luck, of having the right person who wants to buy my product at the right time, is bigger than almost anybody else's. I've done enough meetings to understand when I'm in the right place at the right time. I've also done enough meetings to understand when to get away. So practice getting away. So that first year of my career was starting to learn that tactic. And when you do 1,000 calls to get one yes, you have to learn it. And then I found, and I moved to, that was in London. When I moved to Australia, I did a range of work, but one of the most insightful was selling horse manure, like literally horse manure. And the amount of sales skills I got there were incredible. Here's one of the main things. So I worked for a company called Better Grower Fertilizer. I was a cold calling salesperson, and I called on the phone for people. I didn't know if they had a garden or not. I didn't know if they needed fertilizer or not. But if they had a garden and needed fertilizer, ours was the best product. There was a competitor called Dynamic Lifter, and they would never trash talk them, but our product was better, and we could talk about that. And here's what I learned at Better Grower Fertilizer, is that if you have the right product, if you find a person who has a need for that product, so in my case was a garden, and you catch them at the right time, which is unknown. You know, you can call somebody and they could be watching a movie. Like, I didn't know this. This is like 1991. It's not email. This is me calling. You catch the right person at the right time, you don't have to sell. You don't have to sell. And this is what I learned about selling from horse manure. So many people think that selling is about pitching. It's not about pitching. Selling is about providing a solution to what that person needs and wants. So I call somebody, hey, I'm Ned from Better Grower Fertilizer. Wanted to ask straight up, do you have a garden? Are you interested in gardening? Because I'm here today to sell a gardening product. And if they said, and it's very clear, do you have a garden? I'm here to sell a gardening product. Takes away the issue of cold calling when people said, why are you calling? Don't bother me. If they said, I don't have a garden, I'd be like, thank you so much. Sorry for bothering you. Have a great day. 1 minute. I'm on to the next. No negative energy. I feel great. You haven't upset the customer. You're doing a good thing. Let's say they have a garden. Fantastic. Are you interested in gardening? Because remember, some people have a garden but don't care. I want people who have a garden and care. Let's get right to it. And if it's like, yeah, no, I'm kind of into it, or I've been doing some gardening, I ask them, how is your garden going? And I know it seems a strange question, but I learned that here. That question, how is your garden going, is crucial because it gives them the opportunity to ask you what you're selling. That's how you sell. You don't tell them, they ask you. And quite often people would say, oh yeah, it's not doing so well, or a different season, or I've been trying this pesticide, or my tomatoes are not growing. And then you start having a discussion about something they're interested in. And of course, where this is leading is we want to make them happier about their garden, that their garden looks more beautiful. And they'll have a trigger point. Some people, and it's getting specific, but think about it from a sales perspective. Some people wanted Better Grower Fertilizer because they wanted their vegetables to grow better, bigger, so they could eat more. Some people wanted to have the most beautiful looking garden so it would be better than their neighbor's gardens. Some people wanted just to have nice flowers or win the flower show. But I would push to find out what is the reason they want an improvement in their garden. Because it's incredibly rare you met somebody who said, oh, I'm 100% happy with what I have. My garden is perfect. Because it's not, right? It's endless, right? You can always make it better. And this is what I learned about selling horse manure. And when you think about your sales, pause this video for a minute. And when you come back, think about this. What is it about your sales, your product, what you're selling, whether you're selling your skills, whether you're selling a product, that means that person needs that product. Ask them why they need it. Don't sell your product. Unbelievably, I was asked to be the manager of the whole sales team of Better Grower Fertilizer. As I've written before, I didn't think my career was talking shit. Turns out it was. So I left. But it was a cool company. We had a great product. I learned how to listen and sell and how to take that forward. So these are your skill sets as you think about sales. You've got to think about listening, but you've also got to think about volume. Like I'm doing 1,000 pitches at Allied Dunbar, but I also don't worry about rejection. Imagine that. You're doing 1,000 calls. You don't worry about rejection. And then when you get the right person on the phone or in a meeting, you understand you understand the dance and the questions to get them to where you want them to be. As this moves up, so I've started selling life insurance, I've sold horse manure. I then started selling LED display signs. And again, this is a classic for benefit selling. So I'm going to summarize this as I go through because I want you to have these takeaways from these videos. Don't worry about rejection. Do a lot of volume. Make them ask you for your product. But sell benefits, not features. So I'm going to tell you how I sold LED display signs. And this is all in the earlier part of my career. How I sold LED display signs. Benefit only. No features. Only benefits. Still one of the best products I think I've sold, and it had its place in time. So this is 1993. This is still before the internet. This might sound weird if you're younger, but an LED display sign is like a red lit up like sign, a laser display sign that has like a message going across it in these LED display lights. So we were selling these and we were trying to figure out who to sell them to, mainly retail shops. And we hit on this amazing idea. We used to sell them to butchers. And it sounds super strange. Why is a butcher buying an LED display sign to put in their shop window? We hit this key benefit. The key benefit we figured out was not that the LED display sign was this big or it cost that much or the LED display sign was the best LED display sign or anything about our company. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, butchers have 1 hour left to sell the remaining of their fresh meat for the day. If they don't sell that meat, they're going to throw it away or discount it or whatever butchers do with leftover meat. I don't exactly know. The benefit that we figured out, and this is a bit through trial and error. Sales isn't this perfect world, but through trial and error, we figured out, and we said to the butcher, we would call them and go, I don't remember the name of this company now, crazy. We would call them and go, we're here to try to help you sell in that last hour. Are you interested? We'd love to give you an idea how you can sell your remaining stock in that last hour. That almost always got us the conversation. And our pitch was this. Let's say a steak was £1. This is 1993, so it's pretty cheap. We would get them to put a message in the window. So people walking past to say, it's 4:30, steaks are 50 pence now. Come and get them, closing at 5. Seems obvious, right? But they had no other way to do that. People were just walking past the butcher. People wouldn't know. And it was dynamic. They could just update it. 10 minutes to go. So this is like real-time pricing before it happened. And what we noticed was this is the first time that butchers, short of standing outside their shop and handing out leaflets and dragging people in, these LED display signs in their window. And once we figured that out, we would call them and we would put it in and it would work. And they would tell us, this is great. And we would tell other butchers, hey, do you see the butcher down the road? He's got no meat left at the end of the day. And they were like, yeah, how does that happen? I'm like, we use the LED display signs. And then we figured out, oh my God, all kinds of perishable goods, bakers, grocers, etc. We went on a tear. And here's what we learned. Your product and your sales pitch is not for everybody at all times for all purposes. This is the part of sales that so many people get wrong. They're like, oh, buy my product. No, 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 dude. It's not about buying your product. That's not what it's about. It's how does it fit into that client? I'll never forget. Once we figured this out, there was like 4 sales guys in the room. We were just, oh my God, bakers, grocers, anybody with perishable goods. We were calling them all. We were killing it. And then it stopped because we'd run through all of those. But it was a great moment in time. Think about your product. Are you selling the product or are you selling the outcome? And this is this recurring theme. You'll hear me. If you're selling outcome, you're in the smallest minority of great salespeople. If you're selling features, you imagine I called the butcher and said, hi, I have an LED displayed sign with 96 bulbs in. It retails at £102. It plugs into the mains, and you can put it in your window. So what? I've not achieved anything. And remember, it's not about me as a salesperson, right? It's only about the butcher. It's only about them. What can they do with it? And, if you look today, this has been recorded in the middle of November. And it's about to be Black Friday. The same thing is happening. Human psyche doesn't change. We all want a good deal. We all want to be able to buy products. It's our job to sell it in the best possible way. Sales is a beautiful art form, and we need you to think about it from a customer side. My sales career had a strange trajectory. I started at what's probably the least respected form of sales, which is cold call life insurance. I got paid $0 unless I'd sold something. And most of my friends thought I sucked because I'm a cold calling life insurance, 0 salary, slimy suit, cheap suit, sales dude reading a script. Yet I never worked harder. Literally 50 calls every morning, 5 meetings every afternoon, and then I walked the streets knocking on doors at night. And then moved up and I sold horse manure. Not a lot better, but a little bit better. Then I sold LED display signs. I then started to sell advertising in publications. And as I sold advertising in publications, I got paid a little bit more. I got a base salary. And an amazing thing happened. My job was to sell advertising to people whose job it was, advertisers, to buy from me. Think about this framework. I used to sell to people who even didn't want me to hear from me. And when they heard I was a life insurance salesman, they were like, no, no, no. People need life insurance, but they don't want it sold. But my job was to sell to people who didn't want to hear from me. I got no pay, no respect. I went through selling horse manure, LED display signs. Then I started selling advertising in publications to people at corporates whose job it was to place ads, the marketing people. I got more respect. I got more pay. I sold more. But the job was easier. The job was way easier because my role here was to sell to people whose job it was to buy from me. How much easier is that? So I started working at a sports magazine, then I worked at a finance magazine. At the sports magazine, I'm selling to cycle brands and airline who want to get people to go traveling to do sports, shoe brands, and their job was to buy from me. So now my pitch is different. And as I take you on this journey, because I ultimately ended up being a stockbroker, everyone thought, oh my God, you're a legend. Easiest job in the world. Literally easiest job in the world. And I'll explain why as we go through this. But you have to think about who you're selling to. Because are you selling to people who don't want to hear from you? That's a different type of pitch. Are you then selling to people who might want to hear from you? They have a garden, they might need garden fertilizer, they're a butcher, they weren't expecting your call, but when you tell them what you have, they're like, oh, okay. Advertiser, they need to advertise it in somewhere, so they're going to buy from someone. So your pitch is not, hey, I'd like you to think about buying something, because these people are already buying something. They just need to decide who to buy from. Incredibly important framework, because this is a totally different pitch to the you don't want to hear from me, you don't want to buy from me. Or, oh, I haven't thought about fertilizer for my garden, but maybe. as I started selling advertising, what I learned was this style of pitching, which is, what is your choice based on? Like, let's talk about advertising. What type of advertising do you like to do? What's been successful for you? How much do you spend on advertising? What's your budget cycle? You're never saying, do you want to buy some advertising? Ever in that pitch. Because if they are, that's their job. And while this might seem obvious, for so many people, this is not obvious because they do the same pitch. Don't do that. If the person's job it is to buy from you and they then have to make a decision why, the last thing you tell them is what your product is or what your book is or why they should advertise for you or what your website is or why they're advertising. What you must ask them is, what is their decision based on? What makes them advertise? What works for them? Greatest question, if you are selling to somebody who buys what you sell, ask them, hey, what's worked for you before? What was the best outcome you ever got? Now, the best outcome is they're like, oh, the best outcome was this. And that's exactly what you'll sell. You're in, right? So that style is you to find out what it is that makes these people spend money with advertiser A, B, C, D. Now, I'm not suggesting that no matter what they say, that you say, yes, we do that. Here's a great sales tip. Let's say there's 3 things that make them advertise in a particular place, a particular publication or a particular website. There's A, B, and C things. The best way to get a deal is to say that you don't do one of them. Because what people want to hear is not, yes, 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 I can do that. Because they're concerned that you're just saying yes. Now, obviously, if you can do everything, sure. But you must tell them something you can't do. So let's say yours is a small publication. You say, look, what we don't have is reach. But what we do have is quality. So let's say they want to advertise to 1 million people and your content reaches 10,000. Tell them straight up, hey, this might not be a fit. We just have 10,000. They're high quality, but we just have 10,000. Don't try to say, 10,000 is growing to 1 million. We'll be at 1 million soon, because you're going to lose them. And it's very hard to do this. It's very hard as a salesperson to take the step to say, these are the things we can't do, but you must do it. This is what is going to get you deals. This is crucial to what you're doing. This is what's going to get you deals, is this reality that you're telling people what you can and can't do, especially to buyers who are already buying from you. So I spent a long time in this advertising world, a long time in this area, really perfecting this skill set of listening, understanding. And when you're in that world, and which is basically business to business sales, you're not competing with hundreds of other people who are trying to sell to them. You're competing with a smaller group, and your job is to place yourself at the top of that group. We've talked about this framework, or I talk about it on the course and the education platform that I have. Budget, authority, need, and time. People can only buy B2B if they have the budget, the money, the authority, they're allowed to buy it. They have a need, because if you have no need, you won't buy it, and a timeline. If they don't care when they buy it, that's no good. But if they have to buy by next month, that's fantastic. And your job is to figure that out. It's not to pitch your product. We're building up this framework, and I love going into sales meetings. It's the greatest thing ever, because you're about to do a dance. You're about to find out everything. You're going to get to know the person. You're going to understand what their needs and wants are. You're going to see what you can fit in and what you can't. You're going to do this repeatedly. And if it doesn't work out, you don't care. Of course you care, but you don't let it sit on you. You move on incredibly quickly. Of course, you say thank you to the client. You say we appreciate it, because they might get a different job or a different time and you can come back to them. But you very clearly are going through steps and processes of understanding how to behave in a sales meeting. And as you progress at sales, it becomes obvious, like, I I get asked often, how do I prepare for sales meeting? And I don't mean this to sound arrogant. Of course, I understand who the client is. I'll look on LinkedIn. I obviously know my product. But I think preparation is overdone for sales meetings because you don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what they want. They want your product in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the meeting. But don't come prepared with all the answers because they haven't answered the questions. And that's sales. Listen to their questions, what they want, and that'll give you the chance to sell to them. So I spent many years in selling advertising. I ended up running that company. This is one side note from sales. If you want to progress in a company, be in sales. Sales gives you the opportunity to understand people. What do great managers possess? People skills. Being in sales gives the opportunity to manage people, which will give you the opportunity to move up in your company structure if that is what you want. And a side note here, you're always selling to your colleagues, not in a bad way, but in a good way. You want to be that salesperson, that person that your colleagues know will help them, that will be there, that will be helpful, that you're listening. They are your clients too, your colleagues. They're not competitors. They're your clients as well. So as you work in a business, if you're a salesperson, you're always selling. You're selling to your potential colleagues, to your potential customers. We're going to talk later about how you follow up with your customers, but you're selling to your colleagues as well. You want to be that person that people come to ask questions. They want to be that person that comes to that tells them things that you can always come to when somebody has a question. Absolutely critical. So I'm about 20 years into my career, maybe 15 to 20, and I get the opportunity to come and work in finance and stockbroking, buying and selling stocks. And as I referenced slightly earlier on here, this is the greatest and easiest sales job in the world. And it always blows my mind to bring this story to full circle. Absolutely blows my mind that when I worked the hardest for this least pay in the crappiest job, I got the least respect. But I've never worked harder and I've never learned more. As I then sold advertising, I got some respect. My friends thought I had a decent job. I was earning good money, but I was selling to people whose job it was to buy from me. When I ended up in stockbroking, I was doing what's called institutional stockbroking. So I was selling to investors who all they did all day long was buy stocks. And they had to buy it from a broker. So not only am I selling to people whose job it is to invest in stocks and buy stocks that they brought every day. So now my job is to sell to people whose job it is to buy from me every day. It's crazy. Their job is to buy from me every day. Now, they could buy from me or the other broker or the other broker or the plethora of brokers, but they had to buy from somebody. The way that the regulations are set up in the investment world is that these institutional investors have to buy via a broker. Unbelievable experience that really showed me how lucky I was to be there, to be selling in an environment that was very high-paced, that had huge numbers on it. We're selling $10 million deals, $100 million deals. But here's what I learned, and here's something that is absolutely critical for sales. It's going to make you, it's going to win. When there's an investor who wants to place an order for $100 million stock, let's say they just want to buy $100 million of Google, when they pick up the phone, if you don't, and they pick it up to your brokerage, and you don't answer it on the first ring, they're gone. Maybe give you 3 rings, but that's it. Like the market is moving. Now, remember, this is in the day before we had kind of we had the internet, but a lot of trading was still done on the phone. So they're not just clicking and pressing a trade directly, they're phoning. You pick up the phone and they say, right, I'd like to buy $100 million of this stock. You pick up the phone and you answer it immediately. You get the activity done, the trade done, and then you tell them what you did immediately and you say thank you. Because I promise you this, the other broker would eat your lunch, eat that deal, in a heartbeat. Yet, so I lived for 15 years in a world where 2 rings was too long. Like you pick up the phone, and if you wanted to pitch an idea, so quite often they would call you to place an order, but on the other side of this, you always wanted to give them ideas to get them to trade. So you were also pitching them ideas, calling. In a world where everybody's on it, these are the fastest moving salespeople I've ever interacted with. These are like 100-meter runners. These are the people who are at it. You guys might know I love ultra. This is a different world. This is sprinting. And this is what I learned. Speed of follow-up and speed of reacting to a client is one of the biggest determiners of you getting a deal or not. You cannot be waiting 2 days to reply. You cannot be waiting 20 minutes to reply. I've talked about so many different techniques. Jump into the course that we've got on the sales movement. Something called the elevator technique, when you're literally replying to the meeting when you're in the elevator. The other technique is you stop a Zoom call at 7 minutes before the hour to give the client, he thinks you're giving them 7 minutes to have a coffee before the next call. You're giving yourself 7 minutes to write up the proposal that you heard on the call and the follow-up email to send it to them immediately. Sales is let down by lack of speed. Speed loves money. Well, money loves speed, excuse me. And sales goes to the person who responds quickly. I'm not talking about a sloppy reply or a crappy reply. Think about it. You know what you're doing by now. By this time, when you're at this level, when you're responding immediately to a sales meeting, you can't be beat. You really can't be beat because you're responding quickly. And if you've used everything else, you don't worry about rejection. You didn't pitch them, but you listened. You asked them what they needed. You understood what their solution that they asked for was. You presented yourself. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. So this is my journey in sales, about how you present yourself in the meeting, but you presented yourself in the best possible way, that they liked you, they trusted you, that you're a listener. You're going to get every deal. Really, you're going to get every deal. I'm over 25,000 sales meetings into this. I love it every day because I learn more every single time. I mentioned in one of the course materials that I'm doing, I've been listening more and more to Kobe Bryant, obviously not today, sadly, but all of his talks about what he called his Mamba mentality. And he rewatched every game he ever played, the entire thing. And he looked for changes that he made, for places on the court he could have been. I've started watching all of my sales videos, not these videos, but when I'm on Zoom, I record them and watch them back. You're always getting better at sales. And if you can start to understand that the art form of sales is a combination of your experience, your willingness to learn, all of these small micro adjustments that you make, you're going to put yourself, and remember, listen, I haven't told you about how to pitch product. I'm almost never going to tell you how to pitch product because that's not what sales is. It's not about pitching product. It's really not. That's not what we're here to do. That's not what I've learned over my 35 years, because anybody can pitch product. We're here to turn you into a master of your craft. And as you do this, it gives you confidence to be in the meeting, to stand up on stage and give talks, to apply for that new job, to pitch your own ideas. It's this magical skill that you can make it happen. So as I've gone through my career, and in that last stage, I try to put it all together in my startup where I had to raise money. I raised over 20 million. I had to sell to the biggest banks in the world, which we did, HSBC, Standard Chartered. I built a fintech application. And unbelievably, my company had no sales problem. We sold more than we should have. We couldn't deliver. And I'll take it on board. We sometimes were selling at such a rate that we couldn't deliver, and we were doing a little bit too customization for each client, and a lesson that I'm still learning. So take this from me. This is a lesson I've recently learned. Sell what you have, not what the client wants or what you're building the next 3 or 6 months. And this is probably the lesson that has been the most recent in my career. And I really wish I had learned it before, so I'm giving it to you now. Sell what you have. If you don't have it, say it. And don't say it's coming in 6 months. You know why? Because if it's coming in 6 months, they will wait to buy it in 6 months. Or they'll say, hey, I'll pay a bit more to deliver it now. And then you're rushing to deliver something you don't have. It's not going to be the right quality. You're customizing it for that client. It doesn't work. We were selling so much, but we kept kind of selling what we were about to build. We sold what we had, but we ended up with so many customization parts of what we've built. And, as I told you, it's important to realize what you're strong at. And as a sales guy, what you should say no to. I have to say no to certain deals. I love deals. I love getting a deal done. I love that experience. But it has to be at the right price. No point selling, a $1,000 product for a $1. Anybody can do that. Sure, you can give discounts. Sure, you can structure it differently. But you have to think about how you're selling it. And this is part of that long game of sales, is that as you build each piece on top of each other, the initial days of cold call selling, getting told no, just pitching the whole time and not understanding why people are not listening to you, of going through the journey of understanding how to make the client ask for your product. They have to ask for your product. You're not pitching them, they're asking, listening, understanding their problems. You get to these higher levels of when do you step back from the product you have, the product you want to have. And then all of those frameworks, do you get to a point whereby, whether it's a microphone, a chair, a shirt, a podcast, I'm pretty comfortable I can sell it because the product doesn't matter. Because all I need to do is ask the customer what their problem is, what they're looking for. I ask them what is their criteria. And of course, while I don't know everything about all these products, I can get a good sense of what it is. And as I've I'm 35 years into my sales journey. I keep saying this, I'm going to do another 35 years. And I have data that suggests I could. So I am 57. 35 years time, I will be 92. My dad is 88 and he's still working. He's one of the great psychologists, AI guys of his time. He is still absolutely working. I spoke to him yesterday. I said, how was your day? He said, I've been standing at my desk for 10 hours. Seriously, people, he stood at his desk for 10 hours selling. Why? Because he adores studying the brain. I adore selling. I'm going to be doing this in 35 years. I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but think how much better I'm going to be in 35 years. Different skill sets. I'm still learning. I'm not here to tell you I figured it out. I figured out a huge amount, and I can share that with you, but I'm going to keep doing this. And imagine all those little micro adjustments. I love every meeting I go into. What is the micro adjustment? What can I learn? And here's this crazy important part. People seem to find me personally, as a salesperson, they don't mind talking to. If I said to you, do you want to speak to a salesperson? Most people go, no, I don't want to speak to a salesperson, but I'm a salesperson. Yet people seem to want to speak to me. Not everybody, but people seem to want to. Why? Because in 35 years, what I've learned is that you never sell. You listen. You understand. You make them feel comfortable. You get involved in small talk. And I would love for you to jump into the sales movement. We have module after module on small talk, follow-up, flow of a sales meeting, how to close a deal, all of these different things. They're all in there. Like, I'm super proud of it. But I know in 35 years, I'll look back when I'm 92 and go, oh my God, was that all I knew? I only knew that, but it's still a lot. But to encapsulate it, it's your job to make a sales meeting enjoyable, to make it amazing, to put on a show that the client feels, wow, that was so good. Like, I love that meeting. Even if they don't buy anything, it's okay. Remember, it's not your job to sell. It's their job to buy from you. You give them that framework. And we don't talk about this. I always see selling, selling, selling. You're solving, and listening. And I'm going to continue to do that. And each time I figure out a new thing, so you'll find I have something called the dentist technique, which is about how to sell like a dentist to only do sales work and not admin. I've got something called the flower pot technique. These are things that have just come to my mind as we go along. The flower pot technique, which is the prospect is a seed in a flower pot, and you want them to grow to buy from you. You talking is you watering the seed. If you keep talking, you're going to drown the thing. Seriously. They can't buy from you. So, little talk, listen. The elevator technique. Send the response in the elevator when you leave the meeting. So if they walked you to the lift at the end of a real life meeting, you got in the lift. If they went to the bathroom, by the time they came back to their desk, to their email, your response is already there. And many other things I've learned about being that great salesperson. Of course, there's specifics. How to follow up, how to craft an RFP, how to negotiate a contract. These are technicalities. And each of these still requires the same point. You're thinking for the client. You're listening to the client. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be putting out podcasts, newsletters. I'm on LinkedIn. Like, I adore this. Like, I want to make you love it. And hey, if you don't want to do sales, it's totally cool. If you made it this far, you must have some interest. But either which way, I want to make it less. I often hear that it's painful or it's mysterious or people don't quite get it. And that's okay. I didn't get it either. But all of these small little adjustments. So here's the takeaways. Do a lot of meetings. Straight up. Do a lot of meetings. Record them if you can on Zoom and play them back so you can understand where you went wrong. And repetition of sales meetings is super important. Number 2, don't worry about rejection. Let it go. It's okay. It's totally fine. They're not saying no to you. It's fine. Let it go. Move on. It's all good. Number 3, it's not your job to sell them the product. It's their job to ask you what you're selling. How do you do that? You ask them what they need, what their questions are, what would make their problem go away, because people buy things generally when they have a problem. Number 4 is learn the dance, the rhythm of a sales meeting, how to listen, how to make them feel comfortable. It's theater. Practice that. You can sense it in you as you go through that. And then, it's a little self-serving, but I think it's important. I still read sales books. I listen to podcasts on sales. Don't just listen to mine, listen to all of them. There's so many great things out there. There are these techniques that you just don't think of, like you just don't know. And if you don't know them, you can't practice them, because I want you to practice each of these. So you listen, you learn, you don't worry about no's, you practice techniques, and soon sales will be something that works for you, that you enjoy, and that you can scale. So, massive thanks. I hope this is helpful. I'm super excited, man. Hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. You want to ask about sales, even running, my little side quest to be the best runner. And I'll finish with this. I truly want to be the best runner I can be. I don't know when you've watched this, but I am on a quest to be the greatest 55 and over year old runner in my little world of what's called Backyard Ultra. But I'm also on a quest to be the best salesperson I can be. As I've told you, after 35 years, I have learned a ton of stuff, which I think and I hope you've heard today and listened from today. But I told you, I've got another 35 years to go. And honestly, I'm nowhere near the greatest salesperson I can be. I'm like literally halfway through. But that halfway through has still taught me a lot. So join me on this journey. I hope you have enjoyed my little vision of what sales is. And at any time you hit me up, because I want you to be the best salesperson you can be as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.